Hello, I'm Dennis Ward. Welcome to APTN National News. We begin in Ottawa, where the Prime Minister shuffled his cabinet this morning. Patty Hajdu will remain at Indigenous Services and Gary Anandasangari at Crown Indigenous Relations, although he will also now take on the role of Northern Affairs, previously held by Dan Vandel, who is not running in the next election. And that election may not be far away, as NDP Leader Jagmeet Singh is saying the Trudeau government's days are numbered. On numerous occasions during this minority government, the federal NDP has propped up the Liberals in confidence votes in the House of Commons. Singh is signaling those days are over. In a letter to Canadians today, Singh said the NDP will vote to bring down the government and give Canadians a chance to vote for a government who will work for them. The NDP leader wrote, "No matter who is leading the Liberal Party, this government's time is up." He says the party will put forward a clear motion of non-confidence in the next sitting of the House of Commons. Singh reiterated the call for Trudeau to resign. The organization that represents all 63 First Nations in Manitoba has set a date for a by-election to elect a new Grand Chief. War Lake First Nation Chief Betsy Kennedy has been the acting Grand Chief of the MCA since the sudden passing of Kathy Merrick back in September. Merrick was elected Grand Chief of the AMC in 2022. She was the first woman ever to be elected into the position, and she was re-elected this past July. A special Chiefs Assembly and by-election will be held in Winnipeg on January 28th and 29th. Several members of the Liard First Nation in the community of Watson Lake say they've had it with their chief. On Tuesday, members held a community meeting to discuss their concerns about their chief's leadership, or as some members would say, lack thereof. Here's Sarah Connors with that story.
It's been a really rough term.
Two resolutions were proposed, a non-confidence motion and a motion to suspend Chief Stephen Charlie. Those in attendance in person and online voted in favor of the motions. Despite being invited, Charlie didn't show up.
Why isn't he here? Why is he not here to hear what the problems are?
In October, Liard's deputy chief and 4 other councillors wrote a letter to Chief Charlie saying they had lost confidence in his leadership. They accused him of failing to collaborate with council, unilateral decision-making, and workplace bullying, among other things. Most of Liard Council's members say the chief refuses to hold council meetings, leaving them in the dark.
The people are telling him that this is not right, and the way that he's leading is not right.
And the rest of the community is taking notice. 4 Liard First Nation women recently formed a collective, Dina Otnazan, to bring accountability to their elected leaders. The group, which spearheaded the community meeting, is also circulating a petition to suspend the chief. 170 signatures have been collected as of Wednesday.
And the more we spoke out, the more other people spoke out. They're still speaking out quietly, but they're there.
Liard's election code requires 50% plus 1 of its roughly 1,000 eligible voters to officially suspend the chief. But Dene Otnazan say many community members are behind them and they'll continue to collect signatures. They say if all goes to plan, a by-election will be held in the spring to elect a new chief.
We're hoping that with Council of the Whole kind of taking back the reins and having like the by-election, eventually things will start to be rescinded.
Chief Charlie said in a statement on social media the accusations against him are inaccurate and unfounded. He said those behind the movement to remove him don't have the authority to do so under the First Nations election code, and he intends to serve the rest of his term. Sarah Connors, APTN National News, Whitehorse.
Houselessness has become a major concern in Canada. In Medicine Hat, Alberta, a cookum or grandmother is doing everything she can to help those who need it. APTN's Chris Stewart has more.
Geraldine Chick Stuber has been helping people for about 4 years. As someone who herself was houseless, she wanted to give something back.
And I'd go to Tim Hortons or wherever 2, 3 in the morning on my travels. I'd come across someone that would need a blanket or something. So it just kind of, I'll just restock my blankets each time I run out. And it just kind of progressed from there. And then other people started hearing what I was doing, and then they wanted to help. And so we have like more and more people that are joining.
People like Ivana Hewitt. They have known each other for over a decade, working at this century-old hotel. Hewitt is a cook, and their group, Nistatapi Cookums, made up of diverse people who provide food on the weekends here, when other supports don't or can't do enough.
And the people that I help on the weekends, I help them, and they give back to me, and they don't even know they have, right? Like, they don't realize that, you know, if I don't see one of them, I'll worry about them, and then when I see them, I'm so happy.
In addition to weekend meals, Nistatapi Cookums do much more.
It's a financial thing like covering rent, maybe needing meals, we'll give them food. They need clothes, we'll provide them those clothes or shoes or boots, because we have a really good community.
Last month, Geraldine spent 24 hours on the streets to raise awareness of the plight of people who are houseless. And she, Ivana, and her group have now gone even further.
Between her and I combining what our resources are together, she was actually able to open up these hotel rooms for them, and you know, she's now working in conjunction with housing, and we're able to get people off the street and into houses.
A Christmas gift for some people who need one. Chris Stewart, APTN National News, Medicine Hat, Alberta.
A man who led Indigenous programming at multiple schools across Winnipeg has now been charged with additional offences related to child exploitation. In July 2024, the Winnipeg Police Service's Internet Child Exploitation Unit was told about child sexual abuse imagery on 37-year-old Matthew James Muso's cell phone. They later found videos of children and adults undressing at a Winnipeg school. He was arrested on October 2nd. In November, he was charged with sexual assault and sexual exploitation. On Tuesday, Muso was charged with 5 more offenses, including voyeurism, possession or publication of child pornography, indecent exposure to a minor, luring a minor through telecommunication, and supplying liquor to a minor. He was previously an Indigenous way of life teacher with the Winnipeg School Division. None of the charges have been tested in court, and Winnipeg police say he is currently in custody. The Alberta Serious Incident Response Team, or ASIRT, has ruled that RCMP officers acted properly in the violent 2020 takedown of Chief Alan Adam of the Athabasca Chippewa First Nation. Police arrested Chief Adam in March 2020 outside the Fort McMurray Casino. Dashcam footage shows Adam acting aggressively towards an RCMP officer before being thrown to the ground during the arrest for expired license plates. He suffered cuts and bruises to his face. ASIRT's final report concluded that the officers involved were, quote, lawfully placed and acting properly in the execution of their duties. Adam was charged with assaulting a police officer. That charge was dropped in June 2020. And you can find more on that story on our website, aptnnews.ca. We're always looking for your feedback or story ideas. Here's how you can continue the conversation. If you have a story you want to share, you can send us an email to news@aptn.ca. To read and watch our stories, you can go to our website, aptnnews.ca. You can also find us online on your favorite social media sites, including TikTok, YouTube, LinkedIn, and X. Time for a quick break. Coming up, our Truth in Politics panel will be here. Welcome back. As the year 2024 winds down, our Truth in Politics panel is looking back on some of the big stories of the year that dominated headlines over the past 12 months. We spoke with our regular columnists, Winnipeg Free Press columnist Nigan Sinclair and Jennifer Leywitz with Pasqua Harbor Strategies. Jennifer Negon, thanks so much for being with us here on the last panel of 2024, and we're taking a bit of a look back. Negon, we'll start with you. What sticks out in your mind as the big story from 2024?
I think that it's hard not to talk about some of the very tough stories, and this year has been really a year of disarray for all of the the Métis National Council and the Assembly of First Nations, both in deep disarray. There are lots of conflict, can't seem to get things moving, particularly with the Métis National Council, which seem to be subverting their own constitution in order to try to run the organization. But I think that the year is also really indicative of some really big steps that have been taken in the struggle for Indigenous peoples and rights. So regardless of the fact that the major political organizations are in disarray, there have been some very big success stories. For instance, the Nishalat people, the First Nations, got a huge land settlement and their land rights recognized in Vancouver Island. And so it kind of indicates to you that regional politics are doing quite well, but national politics are doing terrible.
Jennifer, what are some of the things, a top story for you that sticks out from 2024?
I don't know if I have a specific top story, but I echo what Negon had said about the regional politics, because I feel like, I don't know if Bill C-92 and the child welfare law really was a turning point for our nations across the country, but it plays into how people, especially grassroots First Nations, are viewing organizations and lobbying bodies like the AFN and the Métis National Council, where as they start to feel more comfortable asserting their sovereignty and figuring out what that actually means to be sovereign and to advance self-determination, it feels like that disconnect is growing wider and wider between the grassroots and these national organizations. And I think it's really pointing out that they don't always speak in the best interests of the nations or the leadership or the members on the nations and what they actually want to see. So I think 2025 is going to be a very, very big turning point for how people view, you know, the AFN and the Métis National Council, especially because we've already seen various different Métis Nation overhead bodies leave the Métis National Council, because now that they know that that's something that they can do to further advance their sovereignty, I think we're going to start seeing more and more of that.
Negon, aside from the things that we've talked about, other things come to mind as being a pretty big story this year?
Yeah, I think that what's to look for is this year was a tipping point, and I think it has a lot to do with Bill C-15. Bill C-15, for people to remember, it's the implementation of the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. Canadian law must come into harmony with Indigenous rights. That's been done provincially in BC and probably going to be done in Manitoba this year sometime, this upcoming year. What's happened is that there's a real tipping point in the politics. And what you're seeing is really big, almost unfathomable court cases that are now being brought, and they're involving billions and billions of dollars. So, for example, the Robinson-Huron treaty annuity case, right. The cows, this from famous cows and plows cases in that are outstanding treaty obligations that Canada owes to First Nations. But, you know, in downtown Winnipeg, you see the three Dakota nations on the western part of the province who have always inhabited, but were traditionally in Winnipeg, now suing the city of Winnipeg and the Forks National Historical Site to get the center of the city. And I think that this year was a massive tipping point in the issue of Indigenous rights, historically used occupancy of lands. And I think that's what's going to happen in the year 2025 is more and more court trials, claims that perhaps we've never seen before. And so what we saw in BC with the Nishalat people will happen throughout the country in the forthcoming years.
Jen, you know, aside from legal matters, national organizations in disarray, child welfare, anything else stick out for you from 2024?
I think what we're seeing right now with the federal government, I think we're seeing right in front of us the essential downfall of the Liberal government. You know, we're going to be seeing an election at some point in 2025, whether that be we see a parliament right in the start of 2025. You know, we've heard Jagmeet Singh say that they're potentially going to pull confidence after February. It's just, there's really a lot up in the air right now on when that's going to happen and how it's going to happen. And Nigon's right. There's a lot of big issues at the forefront right now. And whoever the incoming government is going to need to essentially deal with that. You know, there's been a lot of litigation. There's been a lot of massive court settlements. And right now we're hearing about all of the backlogs for Jordan's principal claims. So if we have an incoming Conservative government, are they prepared to deal with that? Because as more and more of these claims come forward, we're hearing, you know, the Trudeau government spent incredible amounts of money on fighting First Nations in court. Well, that might just increase because the federal government is going to need to pick a side on whether or not they actually believe in reconciliation or whether or not they want to sit in court and fight over essentially what is owed to First Nations. So I think that that's going to be one of the biggest things that we see next year that is trickling down from what we're currently seeing right now in 2024.
Of course, we're going to continue the conversation, including some crystal balling over on the podcast, but we'll leave it there for this week. Thanks to you both. Enjoy a couple weeks off.
Thanks.
Time now to take a look at this week's web poll questions. Do you think more cultural competency training would help eliminate racism in Canada's healthcare system? There are your options. Do you think the federal government should establish an Indigenous Human Rights Tribunal? Yes, no, or unsure? And do you feel safe in the downtown area of the city closest to you? Yes, no, or I don't go downtown. You can vote on all of our poll questions on our website, aptnnews.ca. Still to come here, a sneak peek at an APTN documentary on Idle No More. Stick around. Welcome back. Here's a look at your current conditions. -2 and cloudy in Charlottetown, 0 in Halifax. -14 for Kuujjuaq and Nain. -9 in Montreal, 17 below in Val-d'Or. -8 in Sault Ste. Marie, 12 below in North Bay. -16 in Thunder Bay, 23 below in Sioux Lookout. In northern Manitoba, -33 in Thompson and the Paw, 30 below in Norway House. -20 in Winnipeg, sunny and 28 below in Dauphin. -16 with snow in Regina, snow and 17 below in Saskatoon. -31 in Uranium City, 37 below in Stony Rapids. In northern Alberta, -16 in High Level, flurries and 16 below in Fort Chip. 10 above in Lethbridge, sunny and +1 in Medicine Hat. 12 with showers in Vancouver, 11 with rain in Victoria. 0 in Prince George, snow and -2 for Smithers. -30 in Old Crow at this hour, 11 below in Whitehorse. -18 in Yellowknife, 26 below in Norman Wells. -14 in Sax Harbor, 32 below in Fort McPherson. -20 in Chesterfield and Whale Cove. -24 with snow in Resolute, 28 below in Arctic Bay. This month marks 12 years since the Idle No More movement changed the Canadian political landscape. Founded by 4 women on the prairies, it quickly spread like wildfire across the country, catalyzing a new generation of youth-led Indigenous activism. And to help commemorate the 12th anniversary, its first truly national day of action, December 21st, APTN News will be uploading our sweeping retrospective on the movement to YouTube, entitled "The Power Was With Us, Idle No More." The 2-part feature-length docuseries can be viewed now worldwide. Here's a sneak preview for you, a chapter from part 1.
On December 4th, 2012, another group would add its voice to the cause, First Nations Chiefs.
Not in the chamber. Come on.
We need to go into the House of Commons.
Tell these guys, remind them what the hell they're dealing with here. No, look, you're just going to make things worse if you go in there. Come on, guys.
They haven't consulted us. They don't have our consent. You know, they're breaking their own laws, the United Nations Declaration. the Canadian Constitution.
Surrounded by cameras, a group of chiefs tried to bring their concerns to the floor of the House of Commons.
This has got to stop, and we are going to take direct action on this government.
The chiefs, who had been meeting just across the river in Gatineau, Quebec, decided they would take their concerns about C-45 to Parliament itself. An action that took reporters by surprise.
Media at the Parliament Hill is weird. They operate in packs. So everyone's just kind of waiting there for something else. And they go, holy shit, who are these guys hearing the wampum about, right? I didn't know what was going on. I was just like, holy shit, Jorge, it's crazy. I'm live tweeting it and all this stuff. And these reporters turn their cameras and they go, who are these guys, right? From that moment on, my Twitter account, it just exploded.
Social media was buzzing with tweets about chiefs on Parliament Hill. APTN received thousands of hits.
Chief Fox, tell us about what happened outside of the House of Commons. Was this planned?
I was asking myself, what am I doing here at AFN when the same things are going to be discussed and talked about? Our waters, our lands are at stake, our livelihood, our people are at stake. What are we going to do? Silence is deemed to be as acceptance. Why don't we go out there? Why don't we at least get our voices heard? Why don't we try and go into the Parliament building?
What were you going to do if you got inside the chamber?
I was going to address the Prime Minister as nation to nation, leader to leader, and not talk to any ministers.
This is fine talk, but it's not true what you're saying.
So actually, we're going to continue to work on behalf of all the people of Canada.
Your law and your legislation don't mean a damn thing to us. It won't work.
So when the Chiefs took that position, I think at that point I realized that there was a groundswell and the leadership was reacting to it and they were taking a political stand.
This is the start. This is only the start.
This is only the beginning, serving notice to the Canadian government that we will not be bullied anymore.
That's where I think the Idle No More movement even woke up those leaders.
Let's get out of here.
Head now. Please.
Let's get out of here.
And I think that action was one of the things that helped push the movement forward, because then you had the resources of, tribal councils and bands suddenly, getting involved in supporting the grassroots.
Couple of faces there we haven't seen in a while. That was a clip from part 1 of the APTN News retrospective, The Power Was With Us, Idle No More. The 2-part feature-length docuseries can be viewed worldwide on our APTN News YouTube page tonight at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. I missed all the screenings for that and really looking forward to finally seeing it. That is all the time we have for your first look at your APTN National News. I'll be back here at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. We'll be sitting down with the National Chief of the AFN and bring you the latest from that cabinet shuffle. I'm Dennis Ward. Merci miigwech. Thanks for being with us. Have a great afternoon.